We now want to bring in easily the most patient man in television and one of the most learned as well, Ambassador Jim Woolsey, the former director of the CIA. He has been waiting to talk to us for some time. He served as CIA director under President Clinton. Ambassador, good to see you again. Thank you for your patience.
Good to see you, Brian, even under these circumstances.
Yes, sir. Kind of along the lines of my questions to the senator, people are sitting at home on a Sunday night. Perhaps there's a million other things they would normally be watching, they'd prefer to be watching, but we get into these tragedies and we come together in a way watching the coverage. We can't believe that 50 families are getting the very worst news possible. We can't believe that one of us, an American, has done this. What is your advice as to how this needs to change American society, if at all?
Well, in addition to the individual steps we're going to have to take, I'm afraid shoes at airports are going to be taken off for a long, long time. The best thing we can do to honor the people who were killed and their relatives and friends is to stop the next one. And the way we stop the next one, if at all possible, is to get inside the heads of the terrorists and try to think like they do and see if we can get ahead of them. Won't mean that we can guess exactly what they're going to do, but we might get some leverage. For example, the shooter called 9/11 shortly before all this happened, and he said something about the brothers, who were the two who did the Boston Marathon bombing. And in a sense, maybe he was trying to say that I'm about to do this to honor them. They were not all that successful. Now, why would he pick a date like that? Well, that's the anniversary. This happened on the anniversary of the American Revolution, of Paul Revere's ride, Lexington Concord, and so forth. These guys are interested in dates. They're interested in anniversaries. They like to do something in a way which makes us look like we can't protect ourselves even on special occasions. And they like to essentially protect themselves from our doing anything to them under those circumstances. We need to spend more time. This example may not work, but we need to spend more time getting inside their heads and trying to ascertain how we can keep them from succeeding each time.
Not to be flip, we've already tried to get inside their computers with a data mining operation that some Americans have found too excessive for a free society. And I guess the question is, how do you find the next security guard who's, brought in periodically by the FBI? They gave him a once-over, they gave him a twice-over, still a private citizen. How do you find the person who's getting the slightest influence from ISIS over the web? He wasn't even, as far as we know, taken aside. He wasn't shunted off to one of those deep, dark corners of the web where they really can radicalize you. He had a negative reaction to seeing two guys kissing on a street corner in Miami. He had a positive reaction to seeing out of ISIS. And again, I'm not being argumentative, but that to me just says needle in a haystack.
It is a needle in a haystack, and the worst news from this terrible situation, in a way, is that the FBI was alerted enough twice to interview him and try to understand where he was headed, and he was able on both occasions to have them conclude, and they're real professionals, that there wasn't anything there that they needed to do anything about. That's a discouraging aspect of this. But on the first matter that you raised about getting inside the computers of the bad guys, we have to do that. Amazon knows a lot more about what you're buying than the U.S. government does. The U.S. government has not seriously been intrusive on a number of these matters where they've been using metadata and the like. I think that we cut back too much on their ability to understand where some of these individuals and groups were headed by using computer skills. And we're going to have to decide whether we want a perfect world in which we have to give up absolutely no liberty of any kind under any circumstance, or whether we're going to make some compromises for a time. We've made compromises in the past in World War II, World War I, in Civil War. Lincoln suspended habeas corpus. There are a number of things we've done over time to make it easier for us to protect ourselves, and then when the war was over, we went back to the way things were before. We may have to start thinking about doing that again instead of listening to everybody who says any understanding of what's going on inside the computers, let's say, of the bad guys has got to be something bad that we're doing.
I guess a cynic would argue when we're fighting shadowboxing terrorism, how will we ever know if and when this war is over? That's kind of the nature of the beast, isn't it?
It won't be over until we destroy ISIS and destroy the Islamist radicals. We did a good job against the Serbs when they were the terrorists going against the Bosnians. We used American air power very effectively. We are going to have to use military power devastatingly against ISIS and in its home territory, and not just sort of fiddling around, a few sorties here, a few sorties there. We're going to have to act like we did in 1999 against the Serbs and take them out.
Final question. Do you think we're going to hear from one of the survivors? I remember a guy who didn't look right. I remember a guy who didn't look like he would be coming to this club. And does that mean, does it follow then that we all need lessons in enhanced situational awareness?
I think it's awfully hard to teach people how to do that. One could offer voluntarily some ways of recognizing. Some of the statements were made earlier about, a backpack that seems weighted on one side. There are things one can watch out for. But generally speaking, terrorists are going to be, I think, too clever to do that and leave themselves very open to that. We're going to have to get inside their communications systems and be dominant in them.
The former keeper of all the secrets, the former head of the CIA, Jim Woolsey, thank you very much for your patience and coming on the air with us tonight.